So in this section, we're going to be remaking this kind of wall of pictures with this nice wallpaper texture and these kind of frames and stuff on. So a couple of things we need to do on this. We obviously need to make the wallpaper texture and then build the frames and the photos and things like that. So we've actually started off, we've got some ones that are pre-built, but we just want to quickly show you how I went through this process. We've got a photograph here of an American football player. We've got some frames that we've downloaded. We're going to look at that in a second. But to initially start for the background, for the wallpaper, we downloaded this kind of motif off of Google Images, which is very nice, suited the purpose nicely. But of course, we need to make up a repeating texture of that. Well, the clue is in what I've just called it's motif, new in effects 2 on the extension. We've got the motif node, and we can literally come in here, and the motif node allows us to literally make repeating patterns. We can do a variety of things, sort of scaling and all creative stuff like that. We've got lots of different options now. So if we just turn it into a square and just kind of literally zoom this down until we get that repeating texture, this is going to be the basis or the starting point of making our wallpaper. So here's one that we got earlier. Repeating texture all nicely framed up. And the next thing we need to do is to make a wallpaper texture for that to go onto. So once again, stylized to the rescue. We're just going to take in a white frame, and we're just going to add this in. Once again, we're going to use something like a canvas effect. We're going to use something like the paper texture here, and we're literally going to kind of like just zoom this down until we get like a nice sort of texture thing that we've got going on here. We can very quickly come in. We can just kind of color this as well. So we're just going to add a little bit of something like this into the white areas, and maybe just the same in the bottom. We're just going to make this just give it that nice sort of kind of warm feel, something like this. And we kind of process the frame out of that. Back onto the desktop. Right, so we need to sort of combine these elements to make up our texture, our background. And once again, I'm going to go into my my own personal little playground here, my modular keyer. I'm going to select this as a front, a background, and a matte just to get us into the keyer. Once again, we're going to start off just by deleting all these things. We need to bring our background in, which is going to be this. And now we need to sort of make up a texture and combine those two together. So we're just going to bring out a 2D transform here for a moment. And we're actually going to use the 2D transform to kind of scale this up. So if we kind of have a look at this quickly, what's nice about the 2D transform is that we can actually sort of come in and we can set custom canvas resolutions for this. So if we set this to our background, so it's going to be around about 3840 by 2160. Something like this. When we look back into that, it actually gives us a canvas that we can frame that up to. Nice about this, we can actually set this to like a tile repeat, and once again now we've got sort of like the ability to do that repeating background. So if we just make that around about 80%, something like this, and just kind of frame it up something like this. The whole point is about this is it's going to be a limitless repeating texture, which is really good. Now we want to make this a bit more interesting. There's a reason why we're in here. We're just going to split our views up to 2 for a moment. I'm just going to put our result view over here. We want to combine a couple of these. We actually want to do like a little offset to sort of fill in the middles. So if we actually just duplicate this 2D transform node again down into here, and actually we're also going to take this as the matte for both, because we actually want to go and kind of combine this. And we're going to come back out to our node bin, and we're going to bring out a blend and comp node. Right, so we're actually going to feed in our background as this. We're going to feed this in as our front and our matte. This is our front and our matte as well. And we're going to kind of look at the result that we've got inside of there. So inside blend and comp, we've got those layers comped over the background. At the moment, the mattes are the wrong way around, so just going to invert the mattes on both layers. So now we're sort of like seeing through to the background underneath. We're going to set a context view once again here, just for a moment, and we're going to pick either one of these. It doesn't really matter. If we just pick the top one, you can see what's really nice about this now is that we can sort of like just go and offset those two patterns against each other really easily. Do something like this just to give it a little bit of sort of difference. Going to kind of zoom in so you can see what's happening here. We're just literally filling in the gaps with that repeating pattern, making sort of like a seamless texture. As usual, all we have to do really now is kind of process that one frame of that back on the desktop, and we've got our background result, which we're going to be taking into action in just a second. So a really quick way of making that sort of initial background texture. The next thing that we want to do is make up some elements for the picture frame. So once again, as I said, we downloaded some, actually quite a lot of picture frames from Google Images. These are quite nice high resolution images. Went in straight away, made a mat, because we're going to need a mat to sort of cut this out when we composite this inside of Action. But the other thing that we're going to do in Action as well is we want to make these look a little bit more 3D. Now, to do that, we're going to need some kind of displacement map, and of course you can't download a displacement map for these, so we're going to have to make one. And we're actually going to quickly step through some of the steps how to do that inside of Paint. So we're going to go into Paint with our front back matte option. There's going to be a reason for this. So we're going to select this as our front, also as our background, and the matte that we drew as a matte, and go into Paint. Now, first thing we're going to do is just going to wipe the frame black. And we're going to use our graphics tool to start drawing some shapes that are going to represent the areas that we want displaced. So the darker area is going to be the least displaced, the brighter area is the most. We're going to need a reference to do this, which is why I've loaded in our picture frame as a background, because we can see that that's a background image. But we also want the matte that we brought in to limit our geometries. So in here we're going to use the matte, and we're just going to invert it as well. Now first off, we're just going to make something that's around about 25%. Grey, something like this. And if I just turn this off for a moment so we can see, if I just drag that completely across the frame, you can see that what we've actually done is we've made like a dark grey background, which is going to be the areas that's going to be least displaced. And we will literally go through using our background image as a reference, and then kind of like drawing more and more. So this particular one now, maybe we'll make this one about, I don't know, something like 50%, just so you can actually see. And we say, right, this is actually going to be a wireframe one, and this is going to be an area up here that's going to be a little bit more displaced. So we're going to kind of draw sort of like roughly into this area like this. Just going to turn our matte off for a moment, and you can see that we've got a wireframe there. We can kind of just literally widen that out to sort of fill that area, and we just literally keep on building layers and layers of these, kind of like on top of ourselves, using all the time our background as a reference. So then we could, just come in here very quickly, sort of reposition some of these edges, just something like this, and then we would make like a new one again, and maybe this one would make really bright, so we can see this is going to be the area that's going to be most displaced. And that's going to be like this top edge here. So if we kind of draw from down here to something like down here for a moment, just do something like that, and then we'll make the width of this maybe about 50. So it's literally just going to be sort of like an edge that would sort of kind of match through. And literally this is all we did. We just went through and decided on the areas that looked like they were going to be the brightest, to be displaced the most, and made this map. When that's done, obviously we would kind of process this out, back out to desktop, and the result that we did earlier was something like this. You can see that we've got in various shades of grey up to white, the area that we want displaced most for that picture frame. So pretty much now, with our elements done, we're ready to sort of kind of go in and look at some of the new tools in Action that's going to allow us to make a very, very nice photorealistic representation of that big picture wall. So in here in Action, we start off with nothing. We're just going to start loading some of this media and start compositing it together. So first off, we're just going to bring our background element in, and we're just going to add this into our scene. Now, a couple of things that we're going to look at really inside of this is really sort of building this whole sort of environment, and also the way that we can sort of relight things and use some of the new tools that are out in this extension. So straight off really, I just want to kind of zoom my background back a little bit, something like this. I'm just going to zoom up my viewport. Now obviously this had a very kind of rich look to it, so we really want to sort of go through and start doing some sort of like lighting effects. So we come out to our node bin, and we just find a light. We're just going to have a light up in our top right, something like this, and also we can just copy that light. I'm just going to make another version of it down there, just something like this. So literally just to start off with, just something to give the background kind of like a little bit more texture. We're going to be playing around with these lights as we kind of work through, but initially just to give us some sort of kind of nice shading on that background element. Now we're going to start building our frame. We're just going to build one frame and look at how we can really sort of quickly reutilize things inside of Action. So we need to go back out to our media bin, and we're just going to bring in our frame with its matte inside, and we're going to add this straight away into our scene as well. Now this is huge. If we kind of zoom back a minute, you can see it's quite really a high res image. So we're just going to take this and we're just going to kind of scale it back to somewhere like this. Now we're going to keep this fairly big because I really want you to see the change that we made with some of the lighting effects and things like that, and also kind of work a little bit on how we're going to integrate the images, the photographs into the frames as well. Okay, so we've got our picture frame, we've got a light on here, everything's kind of quite nice. We're just going to go and get that picture of the football player just to drop inside, and once again these are all fairly high res images. You can see this is really quite big. We're just going to move it behind our picture frame for a second, and we're just going to kind of zoom that back just so it kind of fits in. So it's all looking nice. It's all sort of standard stuff that we'd normally do inside of Action. Just kind of framing this up, just get the maximum sort of width out of that for a second. Obviously we want to control all the elements that are associated with this frame together. So it's going to pop back into our bin. We're going to pick out another axis and connect that up. Now what that's going to do, obviously it's going to give us the ability to kind of control multiple things at once. So it kind of looks nice. You know, we've got some shading happening here and other bits and pieces. It's looking rather nice to start off with. Some things I really like to do though is to make this a bit more photorealistic. It looks all a bit flat. We can put some shadows on a second, but it looks all a little bit flat initially to start with. So one thing it's really going to help is if we could put some kind of reflection or shine inside of the glass, and we can kind of do that quite easily. Back on our desktop, kind of selected, kind of made this thing out of paint, just basically a paint scribble over a black background. If we sort of bring this in to image, we're going to sort of apply this as a reflection map onto this image to make it look like glass when we start integrating that with the lighting system. So just to sort of make this a bit more obvious, we're just going to move this over to one side for a moment, and inside our action schematic we're actually going to very quickly duplicate out that football player. I'm just going to pop in once again behind here. And this is what we're going to apply the reflection to. Now this is kind of a little bit of a cheeky gag, just duplicating this up, and just so we can see exactly what's happening, we're just going to put a quick dummy axis in here, just so we can kind of like move him out to one side, so you can see what happens when we apply this. So this is the one I'm going to be applying my reflection pass to. Coming back to our sort of media, we want to sort of get our reflection map. So this particular one we're going to be using this reflection map, and we're just going to apply that straight away onto there. Now initially we're seeing a little bit of the sort of like reflection map going on. This is only going to be really apparent when we start kind of manipulating the frame in relationship to the light. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop that this axis out for a second, so everything sort of snaps back into the same place. We're going to go here. We're just going to kind of do a couple of things. We're going to first, on this particular layer, we're going to change this to something like a Photoshop screening mode, something like this. We're also going to just kind of offset that a little bit. And what's really nice about the textures now, reflections, is that we can sort of come through. Let's just reset this, and we're going to zoom up a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. We can start affecting things like the softness of these textures. So if we just do something like this, and also the effect that the texture has, so we can sort of start to increase the way that's affecting on the plate behind. Now, as I said, what really makes this apparent is that when we start manipulating this as a whole group in regards to the light, you can see that we get this very sort of like nice natural reflection going across as if it was actually glass reflecting those light elements. So it's really quite nice. As you can see though, if we sort of spin this more or less 90 degrees, still not very 3D. There's actually some stuff that we can do on the picture frame that's going to make this look a lot better and a lot more like it's part of a 3D integrated scene. And we're going to do that with that displacement map that we made earlier. So come back to our media bin. If we come back out to our desktop, we're going to pick that up as a clip and bring that in. And onto our picture frame, we're going to apply this now as a displacement map. Now, a couple of things are going to happen here. We're going to sort of come into our displacement map properties, and we're just literally going to start to extrude that out in Z space. You can see that depending on the density, literally of how we made that original map. Remember, we made it from varying shades of dark, black and grey right the way up to white. It's actually now extruding to those values. So if we set this for something like something like 130 or something like that, so it's really sort of pushing out. Just put a little bit of softness in, not too much, just to take the edge off. You can see that when we kind of rotate this now, we've got this really nice sort of a displaced frame. It's looking really kind of like 3D. What will make it look even more 3D is if our lights started to cast some shadows on this as well. So we introduced in 2012 this year the ability to cast shadows from lights, so we can do shadow casters. So if we come back into our node bin here for a second, and we're just going to find a shadow caster, we can actually sort of bring that out, and we can literally start to attach this to a particular light. Now we're going to use this in a particular way. So if we just come into our shadow caster properties for a second, we're actually going to change this to a kind of a different kind of shadow. So it defaults to 2.5D. We're actually going to change this to 3D soft shadows. And what this is going to do, if we kind of grab hold of this and start moving the light around, you can see that not only is it casting shadows, but it's actually self-shadowing 3D objects. It's actually casting shadows off that displacement that we made. So we're just going to change a couple of things on this. We're just going to change up our softness to somewhere maybe around about 30, actually make it about 20, something like that. And we're also just going to increase the density of this as well, just to kind of make it a little bit more harsh. And you can see now, if we start playing around with where that light starts to exist in Z space, and if we actually move our background back a bit in Z space, we start getting some really nice natural fall off onto the background. Manipulating our light, we get some really nice kind of interaction with the picture frame. Once again, if we sort of rotate that picture frame around, you can see really nice sort of 3D shadows, self-shadowing on that object that we've made. Sort of really kind of quite nice. Just go back to our effect here. We can just increase that a little bit to make it look quite nice. Now, two new things, just to sort of really finish this off, two new things that we introduced on the extension release was the ability to do something else with shadows. So in the whole scene, any light, whether it's got a shadow caster on or not, for the lighting system, we now have the ability in the output to turn on something called Ambient Occlusion. So just briefly, I'm just going to just remove this so we can see very clearly what's happening. Even without a shadow caster on this particular light, if we turn on Ambient Occlusion, you can see that in our scene, if it's displaced in 3D, or it's a 3D object, we actually start now to get natural light occlusion from the lights inside the scene. So it really starts to make it look very photorealistic. Run that in tandem with reapplying our shadow caster, and we start to get something that's really, really very sort of 3D looking. We sort of pick up some nice edges and everything. However, we do have one more new node that we can attach to lights, and this really sort of finishes off the whole thing. This really makes it look super nice, super photorealistic, and it's a node called the blooming node. Now, the blooming node allows us, and once again, what we're going to do is we're just going to disconnect our shadow caster for a second and just turn off our ambient occlusion so we can really see what's going on here. Our blooming node here, the properties inside of that, allow us to naturally pick out highlights on objects and also set things like a threshold to which those objects start to kind of glow or bloom. We've also got the ability to start doing this in certain directions, so we can make nice streaks, a whole manner of things that we can do with this effect, and we've also got some nice stamping effects that we can do. In the case of this, what it's going to allow us to do is make this look really nice and glowing, really sort of naturally picking out the highlights from the luminance inside of this as well. And once again, if we reconnect this with our shadow caster, and we also go back to our output here, and we kind of turn on our ambient occlusion, we get this really nice, very rich looking image. inside of our action composite and something that looks really nice, really very photorealistic. Obviously, this amount of sort of like live preview does tend to slow things down a little bit, so worth mentioning that in the setup menu now we've got the ability to do things like adaptive degradation and things like that. So when we start manipulating scenes with a lot of these properties and a lot of these lights, we can actually get the image to sort of down res quickly while we manipulate it, and then it will re-render back up when we release. It's kind of worth noting. So once again, in this particular view, if we just come up to a single viewport for a second, looking sort of really nice, really sort of very rich. Just kind of zoom in a little bit on this, you can see the way that's picking up. We don't want to rebuild this from scratch every time. So, you know, the usual thing, what's really nice about inside of Action, we can just select all this. We can just very quickly go through, copy it, make that a branch. We're just going to kind of zoom this particular one down a little bit. Coming back to our full view here, you can see really easy now that we've got this sort of like separate version of this picture frame. Let's just bring that back in here for a moment. Something like this, just going to frame up our view as well. Very easy for me to now to go into my schematic, actually just replace things like the picture frame and the actual photograph inside, and continuing to build my video wall. And in fact, this is exactly what we've done. We've got a version here where we've built the entire wall with various pictures using that same formula. I'm just going to go and actually grab that now and just load that up. And the last thing that we actually did on this was also to put multiple cameras into the scene. So you can see from our schematic, pretty much the same sort of thing. We've got multiple versions of that same build, all kind of linked to this central reflection map that we've got. We've got some extra lights just to pick up some specular highlights in some of the frames. A couple of lights up here, obviously with our blooming, our shadows. And we've got 3 cameras. Now, the 3 cameras are basically to recreate 3 different perspectives or 3 different views of what's going on. So we're just going to quickly, I'm just going to come back into here for a moment. We're just going to actually hide our shadow casting, and we're just going to turn our ambient occlusion off just to speed some things up. And I'm just going to come back out to this view. And I'm actually going to go through and just kind of orbit the camera through so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. We've actually got multiple cameras in here looking at different parts of our video wall, and we've done like a little animation on each one, and we've set up multiple outputs for this as well, which is really kind of quite nice. And it's a really nice way of sort of, you know, doing several different things at once. So looking back here, our output tab, we've got like a little camera move that's just doing this kind of like initial first zoom in. Once again, this is because we've got our adaptive degradation on, so we've got this like little camera zoom move down. Our next camera output is just a kind of a close-up, and this does like a little diagonal move across, something like that. And our last output is a complementary one that kind of goes in the opposite direction and looks at some other parts of the scene as well. Once again, like I said, we're going to turn all these things back on. We're going to turn our blooming on. We're going to turn our ambient occlusion is back on. Look at the result of this, and once again, really sort of kind of photorealistic in what we're doing. Very sort of nice looking, very easy to achieve in the context of Action. We will process this out and have multiple clips back on our desktop. So if we just kind of leave this set up for a moment. Down here we've got our 3 results, so we can kind of have a quick look through it, see what those look like. You can see that we've got this initial one. We just did like this little twist move in. Just going through these, we've got our diagonal move here. So we've got nice parallax with using the Z depth between the 2. And our final one, once again, another different angle from that other camera. Once again, all those nice sort of picture frames, that nice reflection coming across as we do that sort of move. And from here, it would just be a really easy case to edit those 3 clips together, put dissolves on in our record timeline to make out that sort of montage sequence that we had initially inside of the final. So literally our zoom in, our cross dissolve to one of our moves, our cross dissolve to another one. So once again, a nice sort of use of making things in Action, generating those, and then using the timeline to sort of time things out and sort of make things fit. So I hope you've kind of enjoyed all that we've shown you today. I mean, there's been quite a lot in here, but the main emphasis or the main sort of theme behind all this was actually just making something from nothing, which I hope has come across in the last hour or so. Thank you very much for sort of tuning in, and it'd be really nice to hear back from you, any kind of feedback and comments. Once again, my name's Stuart. Thank you very much indeed.